Let's talk about trip planning. A plan is important, but keep in mind that Glacier is not a theme park. Nature's plans may not coincide with yours. So first, plan for flexibility. Bear activity can close trails and campgrounds. Weather is unpredictable and can change quickly in the mountains. Forest fires can utterly ruin your plans. In recent years, my annual trip has been canceled twice because much of the park was on fire. And smoke from fires, even if they're hundreds of miles away, can make hiking and even breathing difficult, and for some, dangerous. So when planning a week to 10-day trip, I plan for at least one bad weather day. Your plans will also depend on if you're staying on the east or west side. Remember, it takes 2 to 3 hours to cross the park on the Sun Road. Keep in mind that those who are in really good shape have many more options when it comes to doing trails. I prefer 9 to 10-day trips, but most people stay for less than a week. So the itinerary I'm about to describe is for a 7-day stay. Let's say you arrive in the afternoon. So on day 1, get to know the area. Read over the park info they give you when you enter the park. And ask a ranger or hotel staff if any of the trails are closed. Ask where there have been wildlife sightings. Ask about this year's construction on the Going to the Sun Road. And ask about this year's road construction. It's almost always going on the Sun Road. But in 2020 and 2021, there's going to be significant road construction on the mini Glacier Road. And it's expected to cause very long delays. Then explore your local area. Ask other visitors what they've done that they really enjoy. And take a short walk or hike just to see how the altitude is affecting you. Remember, the east side elevation is about 5,000 feet, and that's about 2,000 feet higher than it is on the west side near Lake McDonald. For dinner, or perhaps after dinner, visit one of the park's historic hotels, even if you're not staying at one. Many areas have ranger talks each night near a campground or in a hotel ballroom. In many Glacier, a ranger sets up a spotting scope in the Swift Current parking lot each evening. You may not be lucky enough to see a bear, but there's almost always something on one of the mountain ridges. And of course, you don't have to do all of these things on the first night. You've got 6 more. Whatever you do, don't just hang around in your room. It's far too beautiful out here. Rooms are for sleeping and writing in your journal. That's how I get the base material for these scripts. Unless I get to the park really early on day 1, I use my first full day in the park, day 2, to get used to the altitude and maybe do a short hike, but most importantly, that's the day I take a bunch of pictures. Drive to Going to the Sun Road, or take a bus tour to another area of the park that you haven't seen. It takes 2 to 3 hours to drive the 50-ish mile Going to the Sun Road. And if you're lucky enough to get a parking place at Logan Pass, stop and look around. You never know what you might see or photograph. But please remember, these are wild animals. Don't try to take a selfie with them. If you feel up to it, take an hour or so to hike out to my favorite lunch spot, with its great view of Heaven's Peak and the valley below. On the Sun Road, when you come to Sunriff Gorge, stop and take a look at the gorge, and maybe walk down to Bering Falls. It's not far. And don't miss one of my favorite photo ops in the park, Wild Goose Island Viewpoint. It's just a few steps from the Sun Road. Glacier is a great place for photographers and Instagrammers. And of course, remember that the east side of the park is lit by the sun in the morning, and the west side of the park is lit in the afternoon. And also remember, there is no phone service in most of the park. So instead of just taking a selfie, why not take something that's suitable for framing? By day 3, it's time to take a real hike, one of my must-do hikes. For first-time visitors who are physically fit, here is a list of my must-do hikes. Number 1, and my favorite hike in Glacier National Park, it's the Grinnell Glacier Trail. This is one of the few trails where you can actually walk up to a glacier. Number 2 on my list is the Highline Trail, from Logan Pass and connecting with the Swift Current Pass Trail all the way to Many Glacier. Now, number 3 is a tie, so I'm kind of cheating here. The Piegan Tunnel, Saya Pass, or Crypt Lake are all very nice hikes. And they're also a little bit more difficult. But there's also an easy one on my list, number 4, Bullhead Lake. So on day 3, if it's open, I suggest you do the Grinnell Glacier Trail first. It's my favorite hike and it's not too difficult. It takes me 2.5 to 3 hours of hard hiking to get up there, but I'm taking photos and videos at many of the beautiful spots along the way. And remember, this one is 3 miles shorter when you take the boat. For many, this is a tough day, but it's one you will never forget. Day 4. If you're tired and sore, maybe with a blister or two, you may want a day that doesn't have quite as much up as the Grinnell Glacier Trail. So the Highline Trail, which is up to 15.2 miles long, might be a good option for you, because it has only about 800 feet of up when you go all the way down to Swift Current. The 15.2 mile version from Logan Pass to Many Glacier, well, it takes me about 8 hours. Now if that's too much for you, consider just going down to the Loop. That's only 12 miles long, and it has only 330 feet of up, but you'll need the hiker shuttle to get back to Logan Pass. Both routes go down about 2,300 feet, and remember that hiking poles make descending much easier on the knees. If either of those routes are just too long for you, consider just taking the 2 to 3 hours to go out to my lunch spot and back. It's a great hike, and because it doesn't take that much time, you can do another trail, like Hidden Lake. Okay, now we're at day 5. After 2 relatively hard days, I plan for an easy one, and Bullhead Lake is perfect. It's an 8-mile round trip that feels relatively flat. They say it goes up and down about 400 feet, but really you can't tell. Day 6. Well, since yesterday was a pretty easy day, it's time for another tough hike. So this would be one of my number 3s, the Piegan Tunnel, Saya Pass, or Crypt Lake. Any of these trails will make for a very memorable last day, but these hikes should only be done by people who are in really pretty darn good shape, because these are pretty tough. If that doesn't include you, well, consider doing one of my second-tier hikes, like Iceberg Lake. On day 7, getaway day, get up before the sun to see Glacier at daybreak. I do this nearly every day to capture images and get time-lapse sunrises. Glacier looks incredible at dawn, and everyone should experience this at least once when they come to Glacier. If I don't have to leave until midday, I'll also try to do a short hike before I leave. The Falls hike from the Sun Road, the Trail of the Cedars on the west side, or maybe even a jaunt out to my lunch spot if I have to cross through the park. Basically, take in as much as possible. You may have noticed that I haven't said too much about nighttime activities. Well, as I said, nights are for sleeping and for taking notes. But I know that that's not for everyone. Most of the park's hotels have entertainment at night, and I mentioned the Ranger Talks. Hotels also offer fine dining and a bar, and the bars, unlike your room, have a TV. Regrettably, kids can play online video games in the lobby at night, while the rest of us take in the incredible ambience of the place. If you're a young couple, remember that the walls in these old hotels are very thin. Even in the dark, Glacier is amazing. This is a great place for stargazing, especially when there's a new moon. The altitude and clear sky means a city dweller will see more stars than they've ever seen before. You can't do all the great trails in the park on one trip, and any trail may be closed for any number of reasons. So here's a list of my top-tier hikes. First, of course, is the Grinnell Glacier Trail. The Trail of the Cedars is number 2, followed by the Highline Trail, and that means just about any version of it, including my lunch spot. The Piegan Tunnel, Saya Pass, Bullhead Lake, Crypt Lake, and St. Mary's Falls are all hikes that you should do at least once. But if any of those trails are closed, or if some of them are just too hard for you, these trails are on my second tier of great hikes. Iceberg Lake, Grinnell Lake, Piegan Pass, Swift Current Pass, Dawson Pass, Virginia Falls, Hidden Lake, Avalanche Lake, Apikuni Falls, Fisher Cap Lake to see the moose, and Sperry Chalet. There are likely plenty of other nice trails out there that I haven't done, and I hope that you'll tell me about them in the comments. So what do you do if the weather is bad? Well, first, come prepared. Bring Gore-Tex versions of everything from shoes to hat and gloves, and hike anyway. On one of my first trips to the park, I spent several hours on one rainy day just hanging out in the Many Glacier Hotel. the ever-changing view out the large-scale windows, and the warmth and smells of the fireplace made for a remarkably pleasant day. Well, for several hours anyway. And remember, the weather can be quite different on either side of the park. If it's raining on the side you're on, check with a ranger or hotel staff to see where it might not be raining. On more than one occasion, I've just driven to another area and done hikes over there. Forest fires are a bigger problem. I canceled a couple of my recent annual trips because of large fires late in the season. Fire smoke, even from distant fires, can make hiking difficult and even dangerous. Bear activity can also cause trails and campgrounds to be closed. Remember, this is not a theme park. Mother Nature is not your mom. And like your mom, she has no favorites. But nature isn't the only thing that can hurt your trip. Glacier has become a victim of its own success. Crowds have made travel, and especially parking, a big problem. And you can see the parking lot status on the website. And remember, you can also find road status information on the website. Too many cars can cause rangers to close road access to popular areas of the park, including many Glacier. I think the best way to combat overcrowding is to start early, but not in the dark. By the way, bears and other animals like to drink in the lakes and streams early in the morning, so be alert and be careful. For many, Glacier is a once-in-a-lifetime trip. But for me and countless others, we keep coming back because you just can't do all these trails in 1 week. I hope this video helps you plan your trip. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like and maybe write a comment. I read every single one of them, and they're quite helpful when the time comes to update the video. To see future updates and dozens of other travel videos, subscribe to this channel. And for the more philanthropic of you, why not contribute to this channel? Even if you watch the ads, we only get about a half a penny for each view. And that won't even cover the cost of travel, let alone the cost of equipment and writing and editing time. And if you're looking for more information on Glacier, don't forget I have another 90-minute documentary called Glacier, the Hikers National Park. It's also available on my YouTube channel. Thanks for watching, and come on out to Glacier, my favorite national park. And I think you'll agree, this place is special.